So imagine when you're looking down at Australia from a satellite. Right? Might look kind of like that, except the colors would be different. You can't really notice any individual details. You can't see any individuals. You can't see individual buildings or houses or even really cities at this sort of scale. All you might be able to see is sort of general features. You might be able to see, in a sense, maybe where most of the human settlement is. Right? But you're not going to see anything individually going on. You're not going to see individual ships, individual trucks, activities of anybody. So this is kind of the view that a macroeconomist has. So a macroeconomist is only looking from the viewpoint of a very large perspective. You're not viewing any individual thing. So you're just viewing the aggregates. So macroeconomics is the economics of aggregate data. It's looking at things like GDP. Now, GDP is a measure of all of the economic activity that's going on in Australia. It's our best guess. It's not going to tell you whether any one person is doing well. It's not going to tell you whether Brisbane is expanding and Sydney's contracting, or whether Broome is booming and Melbourne is having trouble. Right? You can't see those things in macro because you're too far up. Now, if we want to think then about focusing in, so if we focus in on some place like central New South Wales and start to enlarge, you can see now we can start to see sort of individual activities. We can start to see towns. We can start to see, what do I focus on? Okay, Gilgandra. So as we focus in, we're going to start to see more and more individual activities. You start to see things being marked on the map. Going in, things start to take resolution. We can see the larger features, like the airport or a bigger hospital. We might start to see the big firms, the big industries in some of these places. And as we keep focusing in, we'll start to notice more and more detail till we get to the point where we're starting to see individual homes and businesses. We might see trucks. If we put on Google Street View, we might even see people before they scrub them out, which Google does. That would be the micro view. So the macro view is big overall scale of things. You're taking such a large perspective, you can't really see any individual details. The micro view is taking you right down to the point of view of an individual person or business. The micro view is looking at a person's decision whether or not to buy a new car. The micro view is looking at a person's decision whether to take out private health insurance. Or it's looking at the individual decision of a business about how much of a particular one of its product lines it will expand this year, or whether it will shut that product line down. So those sorts of things on that little individual basis are what we're thinking about when we're thinking about micro. So economics really has these two very different views of the world. And there's a problem here. And the problem is, of course, the book doesn't talk about it, because this book doesn't talk about really interesting things in economics. It just talks about the uninteresting stuff. So as we start to focus in, we'll start to see the micro view of things. We'll see individual decisions, individual decision makers, where the trucking routes are, where an individual firm, what other firms supply it with its inputs, where that firm then sends off the goods that it produces, who it sends it to. The warehouses goods get stored at, and then they're sent off to retailers, and people coming into the retailers to buy that item. Right? That's the micro view. The macro view, you don't see any of that. Now, the problem is, in some sort of ideal economics, there wouldn't be a micro view and a macro view. They'd be the same view. They'd just be economics. Economics is the study of people's behavior and what it means. In this sense, it's the study of market behavior. That's really what economics focuses on. So in the ideal, in the best economics, there wouldn't be that. You wouldn't have these two different views. The problem is these two different views often give very different answers. And why does that happen? Well, the end result is economists just aren't smart enough. We haven't yet worked out how the hell to combine the macro view and the micro view. Simply do not know. Right? Maybe humans will never be smart enough to work that thing out. We just don't know. But right now, there's this two disparate views of the world. One at the micro level, looking at individual behavior. One at the macro level, looking at group or aggregate behavior. And we really don't know how to mix those two together very well. And that's a problem. Right? It's a failure of economics. But it's what we're stuck with. So when you're thinking about these two sort of portions of our subject, we'll be doing micro in the first 6 weeks, basically, and macro in the second 6 weeks. Just keep that in mind. Ideally, we'd like to just teach economics, but we can't, because we really can't combine those two together. Ideally, we'd like to have the answers on our micro view be the same as the answers on our macro view, but we don't know how to do it yet. So we treat them like they're separate things, but in reality, of course, the macroeconomy of Australia is made up of 22 million people deciding what to do in their day. It's made up of tens of thousands of businesses deciding what to buy and what to sell and what to store and whether to close down, whether to start up a new branch. Right? There is nothing in macroeconomics that isn't already in microeconomics in some way. Each of the things that you see that's coming out in GDP is someone's decision. So the gross domestic product is a product of 22 million Australians deciding what to do on a daily basis. The problem is we really don't know how to join those two up. So we treat them like they're separate, but they're not really separate things. It's just we're not smart enough yet.